Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jerrod?
Blessed, my friend. I am blessed. How is Mr. Ali in Florida?
That's as well, man. Just got back yesterday from an awesome weekend in Houston. Went to my first UFC event. Saw Mr. Charles Oliveira win the lightweight title against Michael Chandler, and a whole good night of fights, man. Got some cool photos opportunities. I got to hold a UFC belt, and I got tricked probably 30 times by these realistic cutouts of Dana White. I was like, oh shit, Dana, like 10 times. And had a good time with my father, ate some good food. Courtney and Chloe and I went down and had a good weekend. It was nice. Feeling good and recharged. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I'm just thinking real quick. That was your first UFC, right?
First UFC.
Let me pull something up real quick. My very first UFC was back at UFC 50. What the hell number was that? Like 56.
It's like 150 UFCs ago.
57. UFC 57.
No, that's like 200 UFCs ago. That's more than 200 UFCs ago. Holy
Chuck
shit.
Liddell versus Randy Couture 3. Let me see the date on that.
Dang, that's like a legendary
February
one.
4th, 2006. When I went to my first UFC event in Vegas.
246, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
It was a good time. So I'm glad you were there. I love that you wore your own fight shirt under your sport coat because I saw that in the pictures.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. It definitely brought back the itch. I was like, got to get back in the cage again.
There you go. Well, visualizing, all right? You're putting the energy into place. If you're going to fight, the UFC is the pinnacle of fighting. So why not represent your brand there and create some energy behind it?
Yeah, it definitely did. It felt good taking some photos and seeing a lot of people. I actually saw this transformation coach there that I follow. I was kind of a little starstruck. It was when I was parking, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Preston Smiles, this dude I follow who's out of Austin, hangs out with like a lot of the On It guys and stuff." But it was good energy and had a great time. No masks. Masks were optional, so that was awesome. Yep.
And you're still here to speak about it. You didn't die.
No, didn't die, man. I survived.
That's good. Well, hopefully the rest of the world's about to start following suit and get back to some normality in life.
I believe so. I hope so.
So that kind of ties into this week's episode, and something we were talking about is episode 112, perceptions versus reality. And I've been thinking about this. Like I saw your post about the conflict again over there with Israel and Palestine, and just everything we've gone through over the last year and a half and over our history. And I thought this would be kind of fun to dive into is what is a perception and what is our reality and how are they both shaped? Right? And how do we get to where we're willing to kill each other over these things? So Ali, let me ask you first off, perceptions. When you hear perceptions, like what definition do you think of? What kind of picture do you paint in your head when you hear somebody say, "This is my perception"?
Well, the first thing I think of is perception is your reality. How you perceive something is how you see the world. And if that's how you see it, that's how the world is to you. So that's kind of the first general idea that I think of. But, perception comes from, I believe the word, like the definition of perception comes from like some sort of receiving through the senses, like how you see something, how something feels. Like you automatically, when you're at a very young age, if you touch something hot, if you touch fire, you get that sensory perception, and now like don't touch hot shit, that hurts, that burns. Hearing perception. So through all of our five senses, and then you kind of build your world through your senses, right? And then there's also, as human beings, all of us have access to this kind of intangible sense, right? You get this gut feeling about somebody, or you feel someone's energy, or you you can kind of feel the intangibles. I think also is included, that sixth sense is included in your perception. So I think like trying to break it down on a basic level, I think that those are the basic building blocks of how you perceive something. And I believe, again, this may not be everyone's belief, but I believe that your perception, how you perceive things, is so strong to where the way you perceive something, that's how you believe reality is. And if you believe that, it's more likely to actually happen in your life, right? It's funny. So Courtney and I were having this conversation yesterday. I forgot how we got on this, but we were talking about like the dumb shit we used to do as little kids. And she's like, I used to do a lot of like witchy shit, like spells and like this stuff with my friend. And she was talking about how, the power of children is so powerful. Like their minds are so powerful because they really believe in things. And she was telling me about this spell thing that they used to do. I never played it as a kid, but apparently it was popular, called light as a feather, thick as a board, light as a feather, thick. And I guess they would put like two fingers, their index and middle finger, so both fingers, their four fingers under their friend, like sitting cross-legged, like under a knee, and it would be like 2 or 3 kids, one kid on each side, or a third kid, and they would all close their eyes and put their fingers under this kid and be like, light as a feather, thick as a board, light as a feather. And Courtney said by the time they opened their eyes, they wouldn't even notice, but they were carrying the kid like, above their shoulders and not even realizing that their hands were going up. So like, oh my God, and they would scream and like drop the kid. And it was so fun because they would believe that the person was light as a feather, right? So that was really cool. It just popped in my head that we were talking about of how powerful the mind can be. And it's all about your perception, which shapes your belief.
Let me challenge you there for a second.
Let's hear it.
So, one, it doesn't shock me that Courtney would be playing some kind of witch games in the dark. That does not shock me at all. All right, so perception. I agree with you. Perception is all of our senses. It's information we develop in theory, right? In theory, that's what it is, right? We perceive danger. We perceive a struggle. We perceive like doing anything, like smell, touch, feel. That's our perception. So I'm with you there. Then what is reality? So let me ask you, I'm going to throw another definition. So what do you think is real then? So perceptions and then your reality. Because they can certainly intertwine. But like even your story with Courtney, she had the perception they believed they could make somebody as light as a feather. But it didn't become real to them until they what? Actually did it. They actually did it. Right? So I think here's where I want to go with this. How much of our perception is not actually our reality? Meaning, we didn't actually experience it ourselves. Right? And I like to go back. I have to find the exact date of this study. But there was a study done by psychologists, and it was they put monkeys in a room. I don't know if you ever heard about this one, with a ladder. They just put them in a room with a ladder, and above the ladder was a bunch of bananas.
Okay.
Right? And so they put, say 5 monkeys in there. They leave them. When the monkeys see these bananas, they're like, man, I'm going to go get the bananas. So the first one goes up the ladder. And as soon as he gets close to the bananas, a fire hose sprays him, knocks his ass off the ladder. So he goes back down, he sits, right? Monkey number 2 is like, man, I want some bananas. He goes up there, gets blasted off. They do that to all 5 of the monkeys. So then these 5 monkeys don't ever climb the ladder anymore to get the bananas because they're like, dude, I don't want to get wet. Right? So then they start replacing the monkeys. And then, so now like monkey 5 goes out and they bring in a new monkey. And he goes to climb up the ladder to get sprayed, but it sprays all the monkeys every time somebody gets up there. So the other monkeys pull him down because they don't want to get sprayed, right? The first 4 have been there. Number 5 is like, dude, what the hell? I don't know. So they keep replacing them. And then slowly, every time a new one comes in, they start to climb, everybody pulls them down. Well, at the end, you get 5 monkeys in there that have never experienced being sprayed with the fire hose. But they were just taught, don't climb the ladder and get those bananas, even though they want the bananas. Right? So their reality, their perception is, I can't climb the ladder because something bad may happen. But the reality is nothing bad ever happened to them. Right? And I think sometimes we allow information to shape our human interactions as well. Right? And specifically, one of the things I've been thinking about after, like I said, after your post and just watching the Middle East again is how similar people are. Like how similar all humans are. If we lined up people from around the world and talked about our basic needs and our basic wants and our desires, food, shelter, security, love, companionship, we're literally like 98% the same. Yet we'll fight and want to kill each other and divide each other and destroy our world over what little differences we really have instead of embracing them. And I want us to kind of challenge, like, how much of our perceptions and what we think about things are not actually based on our own experiences, but what is maybe handed down to us. You know, like you had a good example, I don't know, one of the episodes where you talked about your dad and he told you that your abuelita was going to go to hell for her beliefs. What you got going on there? You got a fly bugging you?
Little fly around here.
You remember that story?
Yep.
And so you could have chose to believe that, right? Even though it's not your reality. I mean, your abuelita is a great lady who loves you. You could have chose to believe somebody else's perception of her beliefs and distance yourself, or you could challenge it. So I think, like, how... One, I think we got to ask ourselves is, how can our own realities be manipulated? And are we allowing that? Are we just buying into what other people perceive or maybe somebody else's experience? And the example that always comes to mind is you go out for dinner and you go to a restaurant. And maybe the chef's having a terrible day. Maybe the real chef got sick and they brought in another chef. Maybe the waitress, whatever the case, but you don't like it. You don't have a good experience. The food's not that great. The service, whatever. And, right, what's that statement that, like, one bad customer, like, tells 100 people. One good person tells 2.
Yeah.
Right? And so what happens then? You go tell your people, like, don't go to that restaurant. It's terrible. Well, then my wife's like, hey, I want to go try this new restaurant. And I'm like, oh, no way. Ali said it's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even my reality. Right? And I'm literally, like, not exploring or experiencing something based off what you said instead of being curious. And I think that's kind of where I want people to understand is a lot of times when you accept other people's perceptions as your reality, you're killing your natural curiosity. Right? Andrea always says, like, dude, you smell everything. And I'm like, well, that's why I smell. Like, Ollie, if you come, I guarantee you, my wife will tell you right now, if you come over and you go, Jerrod, dude, this smells awful. What's the first thing I'm going to do?
Probably not want to smell it.
No, fuck that. I'm going to smell it for myself to see if I agree with you. Because I don't know what your sense of smells like. And so Andrea always be like, dude, you smell everything. And I'm like, well, yeah, just because you said it smelled bad, maybe I think it's going to smell good. Right? So why do you think that is, Ollie? Why do you think, let's go to the restaurant example. Why do you think people will literally change their reality or what they're willing to experience based off of somebody else's reality, which is then, you know what I'm saying? It's not even theirs.
Okay. Why do people
Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do I accept your reality as my reality?
Can we bookmark this real quick and circle back to the monkey thing?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask you. So let's bookmark this. What do you think happened with the monkey thing to where the new monkey things to where the new monkeys didn't didn't go for the bananas.
They get conditioned, right? Just like humans, we get conditioned. So
But
even though,
ones,
yeah, because like as they come in and the first one starts to go up, everybody pulls them down, right? They pull them down because they're like, dude, we're gonna get sprayed with that hose again. And then once you get those 5 out, so now you have 5 that have never been in there. They just know that anybody that climbs the ladder, you pull them down.
but they don't know why.
They have
just
no.
saw the other monkeys doing it.
It was just behavior. So they've literally so it could be equally as possible for that new group of 5 monkeys that they may climb the ladder and get bananas. Because they don't have experience either way. Do you see what I'm saying? They don't know that if I climb up there, I got the most delicious bananas ever. Or if I climb up there, I'm getting blasted by a fire hose, and so are all my buddies. They don't know. All they know is that the group before them said, don't get your ass on that ladder. So if you start climbing, Ollie, I'm pulling your ass down. And we're just going to sit there, and we're going to be hungry. And you're going to be like, dude, I just really want the bananas. And I'm going to be like, Ollie, you can't have bananas. Well, why not, Jerrod? I don't really know. Just all the time I'm in here, we don't get bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we're conditioned.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to that question.
Sorry, I went on there.
No, you're good. I was curious. So coming back to that question of why do we take on other people's perception as our reality is because social influence is the strongest type of influence. There's an amazing book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's definitely, we got to add that to the reading list. It was definitely like a game changer book. And there's a lot of studies in there that talk about how powerful certain influences in our life are, but the strongest type of influence is social influence, especially if it's people in your social circle or people that you look up to. And there's tons of studies about how the percentage of of people who will blindly follow a man crossing the street if he's wearing a suit compared to a guy in just like raggedy clothes or just regular clothes, just like this, all these subconscious perceptions of like this person knows what they're doing subconsciously. There was also another study in there real quick, I just want to comment on these of it was a really sad story of this woman in New York who just got like beat up, mugged, like totally beat up and mugged in front of like 50 something people. And it's called like the bystander effect or something like that, to where everybody there was like, oh, there's all these people. Someone's going to do something or someone's going to call the police. And at the same time, like, oh, no one else is doing anything, I'm not going to do anything. Like social influence, even though it was blatant that this lady's like screaming for help kind of thing. So it talks about how powerful social influence is. And I see that too in my own life, to where when I try to be a little bit more disciplined about it too, of like, don't tell me your opinion of the restaurant. Like, don't give me your opinion yet, because I want to have a fresh opportunity, right? I don't want to be influenced. I mean, that's why I don't watch the news, right? Because I don't want to influence my mind. I want to be able to perceive things for myself. But I think that we're so connected, right? There's something as a collective consciousness. I think I'm reading an awesome book right now called Psycho Cybernetics, and it talks about how Thomas Edison, I think it's Edison, said someone was complimenting him on his idea, and he's like, ideas are in thin air. Like, our ideas are in the air. This one just came to me, like it wasn't mine. And I think like we inform each other on a subconscious level sometimes, of like we can have this idea or thought or feeling, and it's, it happens and we're like, oh, I don't know, I didn't get the right vibe from that person, especially if you're closer with a person. Like with Courtney, all the time I'll be thinking of something and then she'll say exactly what I was thinking. I was like, what, did you just pull that from my brain? So I think we don't realize how connected we are because it's not in our sensory perception, right? It's not something that we can touch, feel, see, or hear, but we're so deeply connected on other levels that are beyond the sensory that we influence each other. So when we bring it to the sensory and tell you, Jerrod, this restaurant is fucking ass, man. Like, don't eat there. It is so bad. That's going to influence you. No matter how much you're like, I'm going to try it myself. Like, you're already going to have this preconceived notion, and it's going to have a little bit of an influence. And now the restaurant's going to have to be pretty damn good for you to be like, dude, it was pretty good. It was pretty good, because whether we like to admit it or not, their influence does have an impact. I believe. I think that you can really train and condition yourself to not be as affected by opinions and media and news. You can definitely do that, but that there's always, it's energy. It's energy, so it'll have some sort of impact on you. So yeah, I was kind of rambling in a circle there, but
That's
I
all
think I
good.
brought it back together. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think we are influenced, which is why there's a whole business called influencers, right? What is that business based on? It's based on getting me to accept their perceptions as my reality, right? So you leave a bad review on that restaurant. If I lose my natural curiosity, which many of us do, right? Especially as we get older, we become less curious. Let's switch back real quick. Your kid example with Courtney. Why are kids so in tune to perceptions? Because they're curious, right? Think about, if kids didn't have curiosity, parents wouldn't need all the rules we have. Why do parents have so many rules? Because kids are curious. So they do dumb shit like burn their hands on the stove, stick forks in the outlets, right? Curiosity. And I think good curiosity lets me take your perceptions, evaluate them, but then it lets me use that to create my own reality. Right. And I think where we struggle and when we have so many issues is when I just take somebody else's perceptions or their reality. Maybe it's not even a perception. Maybe it's your reality. You went to the restaurant and it sucked. That's real. I'm not going to tell you it didn't suck.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not going to go tell 100 of my friends, like, don't go to this restaurant. It's the worst restaurant ever. Well, did you eat there? Well, no, I didn't eat there. But my good friend Ali ate there. And he said it was terrible, so nobody go there. Right? And like, think about it, that's just one restaurant. So what if we do that with people? What if we say all people that live in a city are dangerous? They're criminals, they're violent, cities are dangerous. Right? And that, because we get fed that, right? Like if you check out the news, like depending on what source you go to, you can see like murder rates are skyrocketing in this city and that city, and all these cities are dangerous. But yet, like I was telling you, I go to Denver and I never get got. I'm good to go. I go there, I enjoy my time, I leave.
Right.
So my reality is that I can still go to cities and be safe and enjoy myself. But if I just stop, if I lose my curiosity and I just take in everybody else's perceptions and their reality is, then I go tell 100 people, never go to cities. All the people who live in cities want to kill you. They're dangerous. They're bad, bad people. And then those 100 people tell a couple hundred people, and we're literally like the monkeys in the room with the ladder and bananas. We've never actually gone to cities. We've never experienced them. Yet we have this judgment and prejudice against people in the cities that they're all dangerous, not off of anything we experienced, but simply because what somebody told us they experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
reality.
And that becomes the danger. That is dangerous to us. That is how hate wins. That is how prejudice it lives. That's how religion can divide and cause wars instead of uniting people under common good.
Yep.
Right? Think about. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, so the Palestinian-Israeli example is a perfect example, right? So I want to use a disclaimer and say that my family, my father's side of the family, they truly are loving people. Okay. However, the reality is that my grandparents had a horrible experience. They were forced out of their homes. They were Palestinian refugees. They had to evacuate their homes in Palestine and make a life in Lebanon. had nothing. To this day they live right next to a refugee camp, and I've gone in there, seeing skinny kids starving, crying, begging for money, people dying. It's hard. It's sad. And that's the reality there. Luckily, my grandfather found a way. He was a welder. He did well for himself. He had four sons who all came to the U.S. and did well for themselves. But to this day, he chose never. He's right outside the refugee camp. So when we drive up to my grandfather's place in Lebanon, you got to go through all these Lebanese military checkpoints. Now I can't even get into the Palestinian refugee camp because I don't have. I'm an American citizen, so I can't even get in there. But it's like it looks like the shit you see in like Arab war movies, barbed wire, and it's sad. So the reality is my grandparents did have a horrible experience with Israeli military, Israeli people kicking them out of their homes and all this stuff. So naturally growing up, my uncle and my father and all these people on my father's side of the family would say like the Israelis took our homes. They took our lands, and I grew up thinking that Israeli people are bad. They stole our homes. They're bad. And I remember like the first time I met Jewish kids in my school, we would talk, and I'd be like, "Yo, like your people took our lands, like this is what happened," and we would have the discussions, and a lot of them didn't actually have family members in Israel, but at a young age, I was kind of like, okay, wait, so not all Jewish people are bad, pretty quickly. But I was still kind of curious about, because I had never been to Israel, Palestine, right? So I was still kind of curious about that. And I remember one time we were traveling in Europe and with my mother and brother, and we met this Israeli couple in Rome. And this dude, I was like, bro, this guy looks like like he's like got the same facial features and everything. Even my mom was like, "Oh, look at that guy," and I went and talked to him, and he's like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "Well, I'm American, but my family is Palestinian. My mother's Mexican." He's like, "Oh, okay, like I'm Israeli," and I remember kind of feeling this immediate like, "Oh, like you're Israeli, like I'm Palestinian," kind of wondering how he's gonna react. And I was like, "Really, man? Like, do you live in Israel?" He's like, "Yeah," and I was like, wow, like tell me about it, blah blah. And he had compassion for the Palestinian people, and he's like, it just sucks, like the situation, like we're grown up to believe to hate each other, but like we're all the same, and like look at me and you, and we ended up having a nice conversation and like had a beer there before we went to another place, and it just kind of opened my eyes to like especially the younger people there. We're starting to wake up and see that we've just been fed these beliefs and these ideas, and children do at a very young age over there get brainwashed of like, if you're Palestinian, the Israelis took your home, blah blah. If you're Israeli, then the Palestinians are fuckers that are trying to take our land, and it's just so charged that you learn that you're supposed to hate each other, and you accept that as a reality. But if you can put those beliefs to the side for 10 minutes, you will see it's like your cousin, it's like your brother, it's like your family. And it's just so sad. That's why when I made that post, because I've been through it. We got stuck in a war there. They bombed the airport when I was 16. This is a big part of why I don't watch the news anymore, because that's when I was like, oh my God, like CNN, all these news stations are not reporting what's happening, what's actually happening. And they bombed the airport. We were stuck in Lebanon. It was scary. It was scary. Like we had PTSD for a while. Like, and being next to the refugee camp, they would shoot um, like turrets from these fucking tanks if jets were going over. It was just insane. And when we got back to the US, we really got to reflect and see that it's like, people are actually killing each other, and it's like over what? Over these belief systems that people are accepting as reality. But the reality is that you have so much in common. If you could put that to the side, you'd probably become best friends and realize that these people are just like you.
Yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing that, Ali. That's powerful stuff, and I think it's absolutely the truth, right? And I love that you said a couple things. One, You saw somebody that looked like you, and you approached them. You were curious. Curious. And then you listened with compassion, right? And like, oh, you live in Israel. Tell me about Israel. Why do you believe, right? Why do you believe this? Curiosity and compassion. If we approach all of our differences with curiosity and compassion, imagine what difference we could make instead of looking at it for war, right? Like, and I'm just blown away that as civilized as we are and as advanced as we are in so many things, interpersonal communication is still something we struggle at. We will literally hate somebody because we are told we should hate them. We will literally not support restaurants because somebody else told us the food was bad without ever experiencing it ourselves. And many of us will go our whole life holding on to these beliefs that were never our reality. Right? Like how many Palestinians will go to their grave hating Israel? How many Israelis will go to their grave hating Palestinians? How many black people may hate white people? White people may hate black, right? Whatever the case, however we're easily divided. Even though our own reality says that I can get along with most everybody if I choose to be curious about their lives and have some compassion to our differences. So one of the things that always come to mind for me is when I have somebody trying to influence me to believe something. I never used to be this way, but definitely the last year or so in our conversations and just the shape of the world has started me asking this question here. Who benefits from me feeling a certain way? Right? So, like, if I get a political ad, right, or something political or COVID related pops up on my social media, whether it's vaccine, anti-vaccine, mask, anti-mask, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is like emotional. Who benefits from me believing this? Even if it's not my reality. Because if you look at it, there's somebody behind it, right? Like, think about Ollie, like in your example, who benefits if the people in the Middle East never have peace? Right? Who benefits by keeping people at war, by keeping people divided? Well, certain people that are in power, right? The current establishment, however they're making their money. Who benefits from influences on social media, whatever product they're peddling? So I want our community, I ask that you guys get a little more curious and challenge yourself. And if you have realities or you have these beliefs that you've carried your whole life that were handed down to you, maybe challenge those a little bit. And make sure it matches up with your reality. Now, if you live in a place where every time you go outside your house, you're getting shot at and it's a war zone, yeah, then your reality is that. But for many of us, we're just led to believe certain things that were never actually our experiences. They were simply handed down.
Yeah.
And sadly, we do a great job of handing down hate and discontent. But what if we chose to hand down love? And we chose to hand down, like, Ali, your job is we were just talking about Chaz's challenge that he wants me to make a list of 100 things a boy could learn or needs to know before he becomes a man. And I just added 2 more. They need to be curious and they need to be compassionate forever. I think about, what if every day we left our house, Ali, and we were like, all right, I'm curious. And I sought out somebody that was different to me to learn about them. Or I just was intrigued to learn about whatever I come across that day, just like a kid. But somewhere along the way, our adult responsibilities or society or whatever tells us not to be curious. Or we get conditioned to just accept that the bananas at the top of the ladder aren't for us, so we'll just sit down here hungry.
Right. We get robbed of our curiosity through conditioning, because we're told this is how it's supposed to be and this is what you're supposed to do. That's why I'm really grateful, honestly, for having such a powerful statement from my father at a young age of like, your abuelita's family is going to hell, right? Because that made me be like, no way, I got to challenge this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accept this belief because there's no way that can be true. And I hope that more of us can start to do that with everything, no matter how real it may seem. Continue to challenge it, and even beliefs that you have right now that are deeply rooted. That's a very healthy exercise of challenge strong beliefs. A good friend of mine, TJ Grissel, he was in one of my previous accountability groups, and I remember I really admired what he set out to do, because he's like, dude, like the flat earthers are so dumb, blah blah. Because so he had a very strong belief that the Earth is round, right? It's not flat. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna challenge it though. I'm gonna pretend for a second that it's not, and I'm really gonna like try and find some substance here. And what he found is like he found some pretty compelling arguments, but he took a week to really listen and learn. And what he found is it ended up strengthening his core belief. But there was something else that he challenged, a core belief that he had, that was really tested, and that he had to spend some more time on. And it just makes you a more well-rounded person when you challenge beliefs.
Yeah, because you may find out, like your buddy did, that he thinks he's right and that he's stronger in his belief because he's found evidence against it, and he doesn't feel that evidence weighs out to the evidence that supports his belief. Or what if you find out your beliefs were wrong? What if your grandpa's experience in the 1930s, for example, isn't the same experience you're going to have in 2021? If you're curious to learn and you're curious and compassionate towards making the world better, right? Like, I'm not saying that pain hasn't existed and that bad things haven't happened. I know they have. Like, we'd be fools to think otherwise. But if they haven't happened to you, and you're just continuing to live this belief that was handed down to you, maybe it's time to challenge it. Maybe it's time to, like you said, go out and gather information that goes against what you were led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and experience things for yourself.
How about this, Jerrod? How about when it hasn't happened to you, it hasn't been your reality, but it's a strong reality for somebody else? Like I think of a lot of the stuff in our world lately about COVID. Well, my grandma died, which in my case is true, from a COVID induced heart attack. Or I was super sick of COVID, but somebody else is like, I had COVID, it wasn't shit, it was a bad cold. Or a lot of with the racial stuff. Now there's the Stop Asian Hate, and and Black Lives Matter and all this. Well, you'll never know what it is to be black, or you'll never know what it is to be Asian. That's not your reality. So how do you navigate that when people have very strong convictions towards something and claim that this is their reality or this is reality, but maybe for you it hasn't been reality?
Again, like on those two topics there, I look at who benefits from us all being divided and why do they want that, right? And they're influence us. And I would challenge people, like, yeah, if you have those beliefs and you have those experiences, I'm not saying it never happened, but it doesn't mean we can't grow in the future, right? And if we're holding on to all think about this, Ollie. If you and I woke up every day and all we focused on is all the bad stuff that's happened, just because bad stuff happens to everybody regardless of gender, orientation, race, whatever. Everybody has bad stuff. If we only focused on that every day, that would become our reality. Yet, we can still wake up and choose to be curious and choose to go out and go, okay, I had a bad day yesterday. let me see if I can not have a bad day today. Like, what happened yesterday? Okay, what happened here? And challenge ourselves. And I don't. I think sadly at times, hate is the easy way out.
100%.
Right? So it's much easier for me, Ali, to quite honestly, Ali Abusalam, man, he's in the cannabis industry. He's way younger than me. He wears sport coats all the time. My goodness. We'll never get along. We're just never going to get along. I can just tell by all that. Or I can be curious. Like, what's Ali's story? Why does he wear sport coats all the time? And maybe, lo and behold, I can learn from him. Wouldn't that be a different world? If instead of waking up every day that we run around and spread what I would say is propaganda, right? Stuff, messages that people want us to spread that don't actually mesh with a lot of our reality and our own experiences. Or even if they do, even if they do, we still find it in our heart to go, maybe I'm going to challenge this belief. Right? Because I could talk about stuff that happened in my childhood where I was the minority in my neighborhood. And I could use it to say I'll never associate with certain groups or certain areas of the country or this or that. But the reality is none of the people around me now were ever a part of that. So why would I not learn from these people? Why would I not learn from the people that are in my life today? Because of something that happened when I was a teenager?
And what would happen, Jerrod, if that's something that happened in your teenager that you did accept as reality and that was your perception always moving forward?
Well, it stunts your growth, right? Like you literally like, okay, so 16, the shit that happened to 16-year-old Jerrod is the best that I'll ever be. So now 50-year-old Jerrod can't have no new experiences because I'm just going to live that one over and over.
Yeah.
Or can I forgive? Can I be curious? Can I have compassion and go, hey, wait a second. Maybe that person was having the worst day of their life. Or maybe they're just a genuine shithead asshole. But not everybody that looks like them's a shithead asshole.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, I go back to this and like we have people fighting wars over beliefs that are thousands of years old that may not even match what they experience daily, but they're killing each other for it.
That's how powerful it can become. And I think what happens too, Jerrod, is not only does it stunt your growth, but you actually start to manifest it, right? Then anyone that you see looks like that is a shithead asshole because you're so focused on that, and what you focus on manifests, right? Like Mother Teresa said, you'll never catch me at an anti-war rally, but a pro-peace rally, I'm there, because she understood those laws of the universe. Like the book I'm reading, really good. Again, Psycho-Cybernetics. Actually, shout out to one of my childhood friends. Her name's Fatima. She's the only other Palestinian Mexican that I know. Her and her sister and her brother. The only other Palestinian Mexican people that I know. She recommended this book to me. And there's a chapter in it that talks about how advanced the human brain is. To this day, we can't build a computer like the human brain. And it talks about how every organism on the planet has what's called a servo mechanism, a mechanism that sets us up for success. Like a squirrel is never taught, hey, I need to gather nuts and hide them and store them for the winter. They just know. A bird is never taught, okay, I need to migrate south to be warm. They just know, right? They're set up for success. So the brain, as human beings, we work in the same way. We have things rooted in us that if we have a goal or something fixed in our mind, we're going to find ways to make it happen on a subconscious level, and it's going to bring it to the conscious. So if we really believe that every Asian person or every white person or every black person that I come across is this way, then guess what? There's going to be things that happen that crisscross your path to make sure that every person you meet lines up with that belief.
And guess what else? What's
that?
It's also going to reaffirm their beliefs that all white people see them a certain way because you're viewing them from that lens. Right? And so, right, just like you said, right there, we continue to propagate hate without giving any weight to our own experiences. right? I mean, it's powerful. And so as we wrap up, Ali, man, I just want to stress for our community 2 words: curiosity and compassion. As we look at perceptions and our reality and some of our deep beliefs, ask yourself, is this belief based on my reality? Was it handed down to me? Was it given to me by somebody else and I just accepted it? And even if you do have realities, are they your current realities? We can hold on to realities from our past that no longer serve us. But is it based on what's real in our life today? And I think if we approach all this with more curiosity and compassion, like a little kid, and maybe I'm in the little kid mind now because Trey's always telling me, he's like, dude, Dad, 5-year-old Trey would be so happy right now. And I'm like, okay, that's good, but you're 20-year-old Trey, so let's make 20-year-old Trey happy too, right? But just like your story with Courtney about kids and the cure, like, kids don't hate. Why don't they hate? Because they're curious. They want to learn from somebody that looks different to them. They want to understand. And what if we choose to do that as humans and adults? What could we solve some of this stupid shit that continues to come around the world repeatedly?
Dude, to me, it's simple stuff. I don't understand how. I mean, I do understand how, but I don't understand how we as a collective continue to fall for the same lessons over and over and over of curiosity and compassion. You are what you believe.
Yep.
And we have the power to look at those beliefs and change them to work in our favor. And hate never works in your favor. Hate is like drinking poison and thinking you're going to hurt someone else.
Yeah.
Right? That's what hate does. So all love to the community, all love to everybody. That's what I stand for. That's what we stand for here on the On Purpose podcast, and that's what we encourage that everyone in our community stand for. Because there's never a good enough reason to hate.
Boom. That's how we end this one. I love it.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.